1. Mobbing and straining. Bullying at work is a widespread and often underestimated phenomenon involving the unfair, abusive and insulting treatment of an employee by a superior or colleagues. This behavior can be direct or indirect and can have negative effects on the mental and physical health of the abused employee. Bullying takes many forms, including straining, a specific type of bullying that involves the creation of a hostile and difficult working environment for the employee subjected to this behavior. Straining can include creating situations of uncontrollable stress, placing uncertainties on the employee's performance and putting the individual in a minority, with the aim of weakening him/her and undermining his/her ability to perform his/her role within the company. In this article, the problem of bullying at work is explored in detail, with a particular focus on straining situations. Examples with fictional characters are used to illustrate some situations in which straining is applied and the importance of recognizing and combating this type of mistreatment in the workplace highlighted. The following pages will be devoted to an in-depth look at the consequences of mobbing and straining, the means of prevention and recognition of these phenomena and possible solutions to put an end to this type of abusive behavior. Combating bullying and straining requires a commitment from all members of the organization who must be aware of the signs and effects of these abusive practices and take responsibility for preventing and counteracting bullying to ensure a safe and respectful working environment for all. 2. Mobbing in the workplace. Workplace bullying can take different forms and present itself in different ways depending on the context and the people involved. However, some common elements can be identified in many bullying situations. In this chapter, we will examine some of the most common types of mobbing and the signs that may indicate its presence. Types of mobbing. 1. Direct mobbing. In this type of mobbing, insulting and abusive behavior is directly directed at the employee being mobbed. For example, a superior might publicly insult or mock an employee, creating a hostile and difficult working environment. 2. Indirect bullying. In indirect bullying, abusive behavior is expressed indirectly, e.g., through rumor, exclusion or manipulation of work situations. For example, a superior might convey false and negative judgments about the employee to colleagues and other members of the organization, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and mistrust. 3. Social media bullying. With the increased use of social media, bullying can also be expressed in this context, with offensive comments, dissemination of inappropriate personal information or images, and the creation of groups or pages dedicated to humiliating an employee. Signs of mobbing. 1. Insulting and abusive behavior. Signs such as mocking, insults, heavy jokes, negative judgment and constant criticism may indicate the presence of mobbing. 2. Exclusion and isolation. If an employee is excluded from group activities, conversations or opportunities for professional development, he or she may be a victim of bullying. 3. Creating a hostile environment. A working environment characterized by tension, instability and frequent conflicts may be a sign of bullying. 4. Low productivity and negative mental health. If an employee shows a decrease in productivity, increased absenteeism, stress, anxiety or depression, he or she may be a victim of bullying. 5. Rumor and gossip. Spreading false or negative information about an employee, or creating and spreading rumors, may be a sign of bullying. It is important to emphasize that bullying can take different forms and situations can be very different depending on the context and the people involved. However, by recognizing the signs of bullying and having an accurate understanding of this phenomenon, it is possible to take the right measures to prevent and counteract bullying in the workplace. 3. Straining, an example of mobbing. In the previous chapter, the concept of mobbing was introduced and its forms and signs examined. In this chapter, a specific example of mobbing, straining, is analyzed to illustrate how this type of abuse manifests itself and how it can be recognized. Straining is a type of mobbing that involves the creation of a hostile and difficult working environment for the employee subjected to this behavior. The term straining is derived from the fact that the abusive behavior is aimed at putting the employee in a difficult situation, creating uncontrollable stress and weakening him/her in his/her role within the company. Example with fictional characters. Let us imagine an office where the manager, Maria, is trying to put the employee, Luca, who is responsible for project management, in a difficult situation. Maria starts creating stressful situations for Luca, such as assigning him impossible tasks and times, and imposing excessively high work standards. In addition, Maria starts distrusting Luca and excluding him from important meetings and discussions, causing him to lose confidence in himself and his work. In addition, Maria starts spreading rumors and negative information about Luca's work, questioning his abilities and competence. As a result, Luca's colleagues begin to consider him unreliable and incompetent, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and mistrust around him. As a result of the constant pressure and criticism, Luca starts to suffer from low self-esteem, anxiety and stress, and his productivity and quality of work decrease. At this point, Manager Maria has achieved his goal of weakening and undermining Luca in his role within the company. This example illustrates how straining can be used as a form of mobbing in the workplace, creating a hostile and difficult environment for the employee subjected to this behavior and undermining his or her ability to perform his or her role within the organization. Recognition of straining as a form of bullying is essential to prevent and counteract this type of abuse and to ensure a safe and respectful working environment for all. 4. Consequences of mobbing and straining. Bullying and straining can have negative effects on the health and careers of employees who are victims of these behaviors. In this chapter, the consequences of mobbing and straining on various aspects of employees' lives will be examined. Consequences on employees' lives. 1. Mental health. Bullying and straining can cause stress, anxiety, depression, and other mental health problems. In some cases, these problems can be severe and require therapeutic interventions or even removal from work. 2. Personal relationships. Bullying and straining can have a negative impact on employees' personal relationships, such as family and friendships. People suffering from bullying may become isolated and distrustful, which may lead to complications in personal relationships. 3. Well-being and physical health. The stress caused by bullying and straining can have a negative impact on employees' physical health, such as problems with sleep, nutrition, and immunity. In some cases, this stress can lead to chronic problems and more serious health conditions. Consequences for the company and performance. 1. Low productivity. Bullying and straining can lead to low productivity of employees who are victims of these behaviors, due to distraction, difficulty in concentrating, and decreased motivation and self-esteem. 2. High turnover. Bullying and straining can lead to increased turnover, as employees who are victims of these behaviors may decide to leave the company to escape the abuse or to find a safer and more respectful working environment. 3. Damage to the company's reputation. Bullying and straining can lead to damage to the company's reputation, particularly if these behaviors are made known to the public or lead to lawsuits. The consequences of bullying and straining are relevant for companies, which must be aware of the damage these behaviors can cause and take measures to prevent and counteract bullying in order to protect the health and careers of their employees and ensure a safe and respectful working environment. 5. Prevention and recognition of mobbing. Preventing and combating mobbing and straining requires a commitment from all members of the organization. In this chapter, we will examine strategies for preventing and recognizing mobbing and the actions to take if abuse is suspected. Prevention of mobbing. 1. Anti-mobbing policies. Companies must establish and disseminate clear and concrete policies to combat mobbing and straining. These policies should include definitions of bullying, procedures for reporting and investigating cases of abuse, and sanctions for perpetrators. 2. Training and awareness. Companies must offer training and awareness about bullying and straining to all members of the organization, to ensure that everyone is aware of the signs and effects of these behaviors and knows what to do if of suspicion of abuse. 3. Organizational culture. Companies must promote a culture of respect, cooperation and inclusion, so as to create a working environment in which mobbing and straining are unacceptable and are quickly countered. Recognition of mobbing. 1. Report suspected mobbing. Employees who suspect they are victims of mobbing or have witnessed abusive behavior must know how to report cases of abuse, so that companies can investigate and address abusive behavior. 2. Signs of bullying. Employees must be able to recognize the signs of bullying, such as abusive and offensive behavior, exclusion and isolation, a hostile and difficult environment, and low productivity and negative mental health. 3. Emotional and psychological support. Companies must offer emotional and psychological support to employees who suspect they are victims of mobbing, in order to help them cope with the situation and get appropriate help. If abuse is suspected. 1. Investigation. Companies must investigate cases of suspected abuse, interviewing the employees involved and collecting information on abusive behavior. 2. Preventive measures. Companies must take preventive measures to protect employees who are victims of bullying and counter abusive behavior, such as separating those involved, changing responsibilities, or establishing a work plan to resolve disputes between employees. 3. Disciplinary interventions. If mobbing is confirmed, companies must take appropriate disciplinary action against those responsible, in line with established anti-mobbing policies. By preventing and combating mobbing and straining, companies can ensure a safe and respectful working environment for all members of the organization and protect the health and careers of their employees. 6. Solutions to fight mobbing and straining. The fight against mobbing and straining requires a commitment from all interested parties, from companies to public and private institutions, from employees to families and support professionals. In this chapter, we will examine some solutions to combat mobbing and straining and to protect employees who are victims of these behaviors. Business solutions. 1. Anti-mobbing policies. Companies must establish and disseminate clear and concrete policies to combat mobbing and straining. These policies should include definitions of bullying, procedures for reporting and investigating cases of abuse, and sanctions for perpetrators. 2. Training and awareness. Companies must offer training and awareness about bullying and straining to all members of the organization, to ensure that everyone is aware of the signs and effects of these behaviors and knows what to do if of suspicion of abuse. 3. Organizational culture. Companies must promote a culture of respect, cooperation and inclusion, so as to create a working environment in which mobbing and straining are unacceptable and are quickly countered. Institutional solutions. 1. Laws and regulations. Public and private institutions must adopt and enforce laws and regulations that prohibit mobbing and straining and provide sanctions for those responsible. 2. Support interventions. Public and private institutions must provide support interventions to employees who are victims of mobbing, such as legal advice, psychological assistance, and mediator services. 3. Promote awareness. Public and private institutions must promote awareness of mobbing and straining among companies and society in general, in order to create broader knowledge and awareness of the problem. Individual solutions. 1. Address the problem. Employees who suspect they are victims of bullying or have witnessed abusive behavior need to know how to report instances of abuse, so companies can investigate and address abusive behavior. 2. Recognize the signs. Employees must be able to recognize the signs of bullying, such as abusive and offensive behavior, exclusion and isolation, a hostile and difficult environment, and low productivity and negative mental health. 3. Emotional and psychological support. Employees should seek emotional and psychological support in the event of bullying, to help them cope with the situation and get appropriate help. This chapter examines some solutions to combat mobbing and straining and protect employees who are victims of these behaviors. By taking corporate, institutional, and individual measures, it is possible to stop mobbing and straining and ensure a safe and respectful working environment for all members of the organization. 7. Conclusion. In this work, the topic of employee mistreatment in the workplace was explored in depth, with particular attention to mobbing and straining as forms of abuse against employees. The causes and consequences of such behaviors were analyzed, in particular how straining can be used as a form of mobbing, and the consequences on the lives of employees and on the company and its performance were examined. We then explored how to prevent and recognize mobbing, and examine strategies to counter abusive behavior, such as creating anti-mobbing policies, training and awareness raising, and promoting an organizational culture of respect, cooperation and inclusion. Finally, corporate, institutional and individual solutions to combat mobbing and straining were examined, and the importance of a shared commitment between companies, institutions and employees to guarantee a safe and respectful working environment was underlined. For everyone. In conclusion, it is essential to recognize and combat mobbing and straining in the workplace to protect the health and career of employees and ensure high productivity and quality of work. By taking corporate, institutional and individual measures, it is possible to stop mobbing and straining and create a safe and respectful working environment for all members of the organization. 8. Resources and support for employees who are victims of bullying. To combat mobbing and straining and protect employees who are victims of these behaviors, it is important that they have access to adequate resources and support. In this chapter, we will list some of the resources and support available to employees who suspect they are victims of bullying. 1. Company anti-mobbing policies. Companies must establish and disseminate clear and concrete policies to combat mobbing and straining. These policies should include definitions of bullying, procedures for reporting and investigating cases of abuse, and sanctions for perpetrators. 2. Corporate support interventions. Companies must offer emotional and psychological support to employees who suspect they are victims of mobbing, in order to help them cope with the situation and obtain appropriate help. 3. Legal assistance. Employees who suspect they are victims of bullying should have access to legal assistance to understand their rights and the procedures for reporting bullying. 4. Psychological support services. Companies must provide access to psychological support services to help employees deal with bullying and improve their mental health. 5. Support organizations. There are national and international organizations that fight against mobbing and provide support to employees who are victims of this behavior, such as the European Anti-Mobbing Network, EAMN, in Europe and the Workplace Bullying Institute, WBI, in the United States. 6. Support groups. Employees who suspect they are victims of mobbing can try to find support among people who are going through the same situation, by forming support groups or joining existing groups. 7. Training and awareness. Companies must offer training and awareness about bullying and straining to all members of the organization, to ensure that everyone is aware of the signs and effects of these behaviors and knows what to do if of suspicion of abuse. 8. Mediator interventions. Companies can use the services of a mediator to help resolve conflicts between employees and prevent bullying. This chapter has listed some of the resources and support available to employees who suspect they are victims of mobbing. By taking corporate, institutional and individual measures, it is possible to stop mobbing and straining and ensure a safe and respectful working environment for all members of the organization.